Hi and welcome back to Headbangers Ball. Now I don't know about you, but I've been looking forward to this moment for a long time. Ever since I heard the album, Nobody Said It Was Easy. Tonight I'm joined by 2 of the 5 members of the 4 Horsemen, Haggis and Frank C. Starr. Welcome to MTV.
It's good to be here. Hello everybody.
Nice to see you. Now Haggis, if I could start with you, what lessons did you learn from your previous bands, The Cult and Zodiac Mindwarp, that you took into account when you formed the 4 Horsemen?
Maybe that's the asses you kick on the way up are the ones you lick on the way down. Maybe, I don't. I had a great deal of experience. I had a great deal of experience. I gained a great deal of experience playing with those guys, and I just basically learned a lot of lessons, a lot of to-dos and a lot of not-to-dos, and hopefully they kind of paid off, you know. That's why it took a long time for this band to really reappear, reemerge, and happen. It was just we were just sitting around waiting for the right time and the right everything, you know, rather than just rushing ahead and being like, oh yeah, he used to be in Zodiac, he used to be in The Cult, let's go buy his record. Oh, it took him 5 minutes, it wasn't very good, and they suck, goodbye. Instead, you know, I learned a great deal from them, you know, just basically really though, it's just, you normally only get a chance to make a first impression once. And I think a lot of times various members of both those bands just wander around with no real consideration to what people think about them and don't really understand that at the end of the day, it's like, you know, if you only have a chance to make a first impression once, why be an idiot when you meet someone when you could be cool, you know? Then you can kind of be an idiot later and they'll be like, he was really okay, he's just in a bad mood now.
But I mean, now you're doing things on your own terms and you're responsible for everything that happens to the band, so that must be a lot better.
Yeah, so if I screw up, he gets the blame.
Right.
It's true. But
now, can I ask you about the name? I mean, there's lots of hypotheses where the name came from. Because there's 5 members, but they called the 4 Horsemen. Well,
it's got nothing to do with the apocalypse or anything. There was a wrestling team called the 4 Horsemen, and we kind of stole the name from them. And that's pretty much it. I think George came up with the idea, didn't he?
George DeCoulius, who produced the Black Crowes record, myself and Rick Rubin were sitting around eating White Castle burgers in New York one day, and waffling on, what can we call the band, you know, oh, this, that, the other, and then George said, why not the 4 Horsemen, you know, that wrestling team you guys always stare at and rant and rave on about. I think it's as good a name as anything else, so
definitely.
Got stuck with it.
How did you go about recruiting the other members of the band? What qualifications were you looking for?
It was normally flair size, really. It was like I carried a small picture of the late belated Cliff Burton from Metallica with me, and if their flares measured up to his flares, and the look on their face was quite as demented as his, then they were in the band. Seriously, just the same attitude as I have, which is just worrying more about the music than anything else, you know? I think a lot of bands are all too happy to have nice haircuts and worry about whether their leather jacket looks cool and worry whether they drop the right names and everything. And they don't even worry about whether they have any good songs or whether they can even play or not. And that's what we worried about, you know, with really a callous disregard to everything else. I'm actually surprised that we're even here, that anyone even cares about us, and that our record's even selling in America, because we made a record on our own terms how we wanted to, and I really thought that it would be one of those records like the Masters of Reality where everyone will go, great record, shame about the sales, goodbye. And instead, I guess it's the most added record on American radio in 3.5 years. Everybody seems to like us, and it's all very nice. And I guess now we're here trying to impress everybody the same as we didn't try and impress everybody in America.
Well, I must say I find that attitude very refreshing because, you know, rock, I don't know what you think, Frank, as well, but do you feel that rock music has become very self-indulgent as well?
I just think there are too many people out there that are just too worried about what they look like rather than what they sound like. You know? And, we pretty much don't give a shit except for what it sounds like. You know, he'll go up there and he'll dress up in his little flare bell bottoms and his hat and, you know, and his gold tooth. And me, I wear my sneakers and my jeans. You know, this doesn't really matter. As long as the music sounds good and everybody likes it, that's what counts.
Absolutely. Okay, well, we're going to talk some more in a moment, but right now we're going to see the title track of the album. Frank.
Nobody Said It Was Easy.
Right. Haggis and Frank C. Starr of the 4 Horsemen are still with me here on Headbangers Ball. We're going to talk some more about the album. Now, you guys actually took 3 years off before you went in to record your debut album. Why was that?
Lazy bastards.
hey, the record company were paying us. Nobody from the record company ever bothered ringing us up and asking us why we weren't making a record. I mean, if somebody said to you, go do the dishes, then you'd probably go, okay, I'm going to go do the dishes. Or if somebody said to me, go do the dishes, I'd probably go do the dishes. But, you know, if they don't tell you to, they just pile up and you just don't bother doing them. And we kept getting paid, and, you know, it's like we kept ordering takeout and never bothered doing those dishes. And after like 3 years, Rick finally rang up and said, you know what, guys? Where are you going?
A record.
It took me about 4 days to write about 2/3 of the record. Probably just from a lot of ideas. We'd already been on tour with the Black Crowes in the States without with the songs we'd written over that 3-year period. I mean, we did actually rehearse once in a while, and we did actually once in a while actually play. And then suddenly we offered this tour, and we were like, gee, we better go rehearse. So we had, you know, the first night we played, their tour manager came into the dressing room. We thought we were a really big deal. We went on stage, we played, and we were supposed to play an hour support set, and then he walked into the dressing room after the show and goes, excuse me, lads, was there something wrong with the stage? And I was like, I thought he meant because I spit a lot. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to spit on the stage. He goes, you only played for 23 minutes. And we were like, well, that's all the songs we have. We played everything we have. So we had to play them slower the next night, and then we played them slower the next night. Finally, we got up to about 45 minutes, but by then we sounded like Pink Floyd on Quaaludes or something. But
So when you finally got into the studio, how did you adapt to being in that very disciplined environment?
I cannot be disciplined at all.
You didn't adapt.
I am the most least disciplined person that I know of.
The most least disciplined. You know,
What's this story of you couldn't be bothered to come in the studio and you sang one of the songs down the phone? Is that true?
Yeah. I thought we were finished. I had asked Haggis, are we done now? And he went, yeah, we're done, and you can go do what you want to do. And I went and did what I wanted to do, and they called me up the next day and he said, we forgot a song, we need you to come into the studio. And I went, I'm not coming in. We're finished. You said and you promised me that I would not have to come back, and I'm not coming back. So Ruben and Haggis and everybody figured, all right, let's make them happy. We'll leave them at home, and they went and set up a speakerphone system at the house. I just did it at the house. I just, 2 takes, and that was it.
It was the song Moonshine, and we figured, normally we wouldn't get away with it, but we figured everyone thinks it's a CB radio, not over the telephone, so it sounded like it'd work. And
it's pretty cool.
So we just did it, you know. Making our record was a very short and sharp thing. We booked the big studio for 3 days and the small studio for about 5 days. We actually finished cutting all the basic tracks in the first day, but they wouldn't give us our money back for the other 2 days in the big studio, so we played them all again just for the sake of it.
So very, very spontaneous.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if you imagined, let's just say, if we hadn't made the Four Horsemen record and we were sitting here right now, Rick Rubin walks in and goes, I want to hear some songs. I went home. What day are we on now? I can't, whatever day we're on in 4 days' time. The songs were written. We rehearsed for 2 days. Then we went in the studio, and a week after that, our record was finished. So we waited 3 years to spend 2 weeks making our record.
I think you should be in the Guinness Book of Records, actually, for that.
Actually, I think the Black Crowes beat us because I was just in Atlanta with them in the recording studio, and they recorded their whole new album, mixed it in 8 days.
Unbelievable.
And it's an amazing record, and it's even more incredible than their last record, which is an amazing record. And so who knows? Maybe we'll do our next one in 4. Then they'll do their next one in 2, and then we'll just end up. But you know, it was funny though. You know, I cut all my rhythm guitar tracks in about. Actually, Dave and I, apart from the lead guitar, cut all our guitars in 2 days. And I remember Slayer were working in the studio next door, cutting Seasons in the Abyss. And you know, they're friends of ours, and Jeff Hanneman came out. And I was feeling all pleased with myself. I just finished my rhythm guitar tracks, and he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I finished my guitar tracks." He goes, "How long did it take?" I said, 2 days. He goes, "Oh," he goes, "I just finished all my rhythm guitars and leads, and I did 2 of everything, so we could pick 2." So I said, "How long did it take?" He said, "About 2 hours." I was like, "Okay." He goes, "Well, and you know, Rick came out, and I said, "Did he really just cut every single guitar part on the record twice over in 2 hours?" And he said, "Yeah, well, he only had to play everything once. He never makes a mistake, so he did the whole record once." And then he did it all again a bit different in case they decided they wanted something else.
Right.
So I guess Slayer beat us both.
Now we've got some more music coming up. Very quickly, could you explain why you changed from bass to rhythm guitar?
You know what? When I quit Zodiac, they took all my gear off me because they were sulking that I left the band. So they took all my gear off me and wouldn't give it back to me. So I didn't have a guitar after that. And the only guitar I had, you know, and I joined the Cult. And they were nice enough to buy me a bass guitar. And then when I finished playing with the Cult, I didn't have any money to get to America to start the Four Horsemen, so I had to sell my bass guitar to fly to America. And then when I got to America, the only thing lying around in Rick Rubin's apartment was an old bashed up Gibson, and it was a guitar rather than a bass.
Right.
So I said, Rick, will you buy me a bass? And he said, no, you've got a guitar there, you can take 2 of the strings off and make do with that. so I stuck to guitar, and that was the end of it.
Right, well, we'll be talking actually about Rick Rubin in the next segment, but right now we're going to see another video from you guys. It's the second video to come from the album, and nobody said it was easy, and this is Rockin' Is My Business. Headbangers Ball continues with my special guests, Haggis and Frank Seastar from the Four Horsemen. And just before the last video there, we were talking about why Haggis changed from bass guitar to rhythm guitar. And actually, Haggis, I wanted to ask you, did you actually take any lessons? Because Jeff Ament of Pearl Jam told me that he didn't actually ever take any lessons because he felt that in the long run it made him a better guitarist and songwriter because he didn't have any kind of like preconceived boundaries.
Definitely. I think this exactly the same reason why Rick Rubin is a great producer. And you know, Rick Rubin doesn't know anything about the technical side of the studio. He knows nothing. He has an engineer who does, and he walks in and he says, this is an idea, and this is an idea, and this is how I'd like it to be, and that's what happens. And in this band, I'm not a very good musician, and I walk in and I'm surrounded by amazing musicians, and I just say, this is the idea, this is how I'd like it to be, and everybody does it, and I sort of tag along behind doing a bad Ron Wood impression on the slide guitar, and sort of generally wearing very silly trousers and jumping about as much as I can, trying to look entertaining. But I mean, I'm sure there are a lot of people who do the same thing. You know, when I was in the Cult, there was a bodyguard we had who looked after Keith Richards for 17 years, and he told me that at the height of Keith Richards' drug problems, he never once was heard out front at a Stones gig. For about 5 or 6 years, every night he'd go on stage, and out front he wasn't even turned on. He was just lying on the floor, staggering, messing around, and Ron Wood was actually playing all his parts, and he didn't even know that nobody was listening to him out front, because it was just so awful. But it didn't matter. I mean, where would the Rolling Stones be without Keith Richards?
Absolutely. And Frank, what was your previous experience? Have you ever had any kind of singing lessons?
No, I just kind of woke up one day and started singing, pretty much. No, I guess I started when I was about 8 years old, just mimicking what I heard off the radio. And at that time, it was like Motown Top 40, and just kind of got into it. There was a lot of soulful things on the radio, because at that time I only had was a little AM.
Right.
And just pretty much mimicked, and then as I got older, just figured, hey, you know, play some rock and roll, try to form a band with some friends, and it kind of worked out, and I've just been running back and forth.
And you're also really, really into cars, but we're not going to talk about that.
No, Haggis won't.
Because we want to talk some more about the album.
Because we don't care, nobody's going to buy a car.
Frank's always trying to sell people Chevys.
And any car Frank has, you probably wouldn't find in this country anyway.
That's true.
Now, I'm sure you'll agree with me that the band does have a very retro kind of feel. What do you think you're doing that's any different? Or do you think you've...
I think we have good songs. That's all. That's the only difference between us and maybe a million other bands. I won't criticize any other band, because I think that any band, just being a band, is better than doing nothing. I mean, I admire them for that. But I would say that there are probably, you could probably pick maybe 10 bands that might have been thrown in the same bag as us. I mean, and to be honest, I mean, in America, I can't say for here, most people, I can walk into a truck stop down south and some woman will go, you're that guy from the Four Horsemen, and start singing one of our songs. I don't really know, you know, that's what we're about, it's just songs. I mean, of course our guitars sound like they were recorded in 1973, and yes, I do happen to think Paul Kossoff from Free was one of the greatest guitar players ever, and maybe we like the Rolling Stones, and maybe we, you know, we have a very dry sound, but at the end of the day, it just comes down to the songs, you know, and I think a lot of bands head for that retro, as you would say, sound, but if you don't have songs, then who cares? I mean,
I know, but also if I could say what I feel, I think that what sets you apart is your sense of humour and also your really great attitude.
We have a very self-effacing sense of humor. Like I said at the beginning of this interview, you asked me what I learned, and it was the, you know, the asses you kick on the way up are the ones you lick on the way down. It's just like, you know, my whole philosophy on life is if you kind of can laugh at yourself, then everyone else laughing at you makes no difference. And at the end of the day, let's be honest, wearing a plastic German helmet and running around talking about how large your genitals are is a very silly thing. And hey, and I was involved in it, and I did it for 2 years, and I never thought I was stupid. I just thought it was great fun. And you know.
Now, a little earlier we were talking about the bearded one, Rick Rubin. What do you think that he's contributed to your career?
To me, he contributed a little more self-respect than I had before. I mean, he showed me that I do have an ability to do something and the ability for it to be heard.
Other than shoot people.
Other than shoot people and beat people up and race cars. And he gave me some self-respect. I mean, he gave me something that I've always wanted, you know, and didn't really have the opportunity or the chance to grasp it. You know, he introduced me to haggis. And I'm here now. You know, it's something I've always wanted to do, and I don't think if I never got to that brawl into the parking lot, I wouldn't have met these guys, and I probably wouldn't be here now.
Well, we have to. I just say you don't have to say that. Rick is rumored to have different amounts of involvements with different bands on his label and whatever, and the title that we kind of lovingly bestow upon him is our spiritual cheerleader.
Right.
He's the guy who, you know, maybe with some bands on Deaf American, he goes to the studio, helps them write songs. Other bands, he designs their image and stuff. He completely left us alone to do our own thing, but he was always the guy. He'd come to the studio at the last minute, and we'd think we had it just right, and he'd be like, "Yo, man, you got to do it a little different. Try it like this," and we'd be like, "Gee, man, you know, an outside view, really." He was just always there for us. People were like, "You're crazy." We never signed a contract with him. We still haven't. It was all on a handshake. He paid us for 3 years, and we never did a thing. We were on his label for years, and he never even heard a song, but he just believed in it, and he just thought it was cool. And without him, we definitely would not be here. And I don't think people say, "Well, you know, you signed to Deaf American, weren't other labels looking for you? You could have got millions of dollars with the vibe and all that." And we were like, "But we didn't exist." There was nothing there. I mean, you know, it was all about me and him sitting backstage at a Cult gig going, "Yeah, let's shake hands, and you come Def Jam," which it still was at the time. "Come do this," you know, and Frankie and just the whole vibe. You know, it's just he just is a really visionary guy who has a very different perception on the music industry. He's almost like he's an artist rather than a businessman. You know, and that has constantly got him in trouble. But at the end of the day, you know. He deserves the credibility that he has, because basically he isn't full of the word that you would beep out if I said it anyway.
Great. And finally, we just learnt this afternoon actually that you're going to be touring over here with Love Hate in the UK, and we're hoping for European dates pretty soon.
Sure.
So you're looking forward to that, right?
Yeah, the rumour is the last sort of 10 days of March going into the first couple of weeks in April in the UK, and then maybe some dates in Europe with him too. With
Excellent.
him, with them.
With them.
With it. With our good friend Leonard, you know, we played with Leonard Skinner.
Right.
Yeah, that guy's great, you know. I remember Leonard Skinner. He used to play with Merle Haggard. It's like, yeah.
Well, I have to say thank you to both of you for joining me. I've really enjoyed meeting you, and I sincerely wish you the very best of luck, because I think you deserve it.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you very much.
Good luck, and we're going to take another commercial break right now, and after that I will be meeting up with Zodiac Mind Warp, so stick around.